Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ojanen, and our special guest is the publisher of Devils Illustrated and Deacons Illustrated. You get two for the price. No, you don't. You get Conor O'Neill, and that's all she wrote, man. He's covering it all. But tonight, we're going to be talking about Devils, and it's Duke against the Irish. Oh, my. Conor, the trash talk on these Notre Dame message boards even rubs me the wrong way. So it's like one of the comments that immediately just hit me. It was like, oh, that Duke, they're mediocre at best, and that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, all right, yeah, we'll see. So let's get into this, man. And for all you Duke fans who are watching this, I don't want to hear from anybody with Notre Dame. Okay. So you just keep it to yourself, keep it to your message boards. This is all about Duke. So
still subscribe to the podcast though, but
that's right. That's right. Because we're going to be covering other aspects of you. So, whatever. This is an interesting matchup. And as Will and I were talking before you joined us, on paper, this is beginning to look more and more like, wow, okay, this is going to be an interesting game. We would not have seen that in the earlier part of the season, or even when you joined us to talk about the Duke Blue Devils football preview. So what's changed? The timeout? What?
Yeah, I mean, I will toot my own horn here a little bit. I believe I said I thought Duke was not going to take the step back everybody thought they would, just because the schedule was going to be harder than it was last year. Because going into last year, we thought the schedule was hard, and then all of a sudden it wound up being really easy.
Brownie points, dude.
Yeah, like we as media, like it's on us. It's in the media that all think we have the answers in July and think we know who's going to be good and who's going to be bad. And all you have to do to disprove that is go compare the preseason media polls with how it actually plays out in the season to see how dumb we all are.
Yeah, I absolutely hate those really preseason polls, or the way too early, or it's all garbage until you get to the third or fourth week of actual play. Yeah. And then you know what you really have. And then we can start talking serious. That's where we are right now. And it's time to talk serious. So let's talk about Duke. Let's talk about how I'm going to start off with Riley Leonard. And man, I just finished up watching a bunch of tape on both Duke and Notre Dame. And I'm going, Riley Leonard is, man, he's something more than what I thought he was going to be. He's improved dramatically.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing with Riley is a lot of this was the summer talking point that I didn't dismiss as media stuff, because it was coming from the coaches and from Riley himself. He's taken a step forward in his understanding of situational football, in his understanding of the offense and what is required of him. Not to diminish his impact or his role, but there's not much that's required of him on some plays, because in the first 3 games when you're running for 200 yards, he's part of that. Like he had 97 against Clemson and the big touchdown run that put him ahead. But it's Mike Elko's talked a lot to us about how it's just as simple as Riley understanding a 1st and 10 drop back. If he doesn't have an immediate option available to him, throw it out of bounds into the crowd or take off. And if you get 3 yards, then that's fine. Like 2nd and 7, your odds of converting a first down are so much better than they are on 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 15 if you sit in the top pocket and wait for something to develop and take a sack. So what you're seeing with him is the growth and maturity to the naked eye. You look at his stats, and I don't I don't think he's averaging over 200 yards passing a game. He's only got, I think, 2 passing touchdowns all year. Duke just keeps running the ball into the end zone, so they don't have to throw the ball to the end zone. Um, it's kind of like the baseball thing where you have so many so many true outcomes. When you run the ball, you have so many fewer true outcomes than when you put the ball in the air, and drops can happen, tip passes can happen, all that bad stuff. It's just he's a really mature, really, really cerebral quarterback. He's a great athlete. We knew that all last year, but he's come into his own, even if the stats don't bear it out.
Yeah, and my background is in stats, and I spend less time looking at stats now than I ever have. If you don't look at the actual tape, then you're not really understanding the game or what somebody's delivering. And in this particular instance, Leonard is the classic example of that. I love the way he stays in the pocket. He's going through his reads and he's doing it quick. I mean, really quick. That guy has got a good command of the field. That's amazing for a quarterback at that level. The next thing that I really like about him is that if he has to run, if that pocket breaks down, Lord help you if you get in his way, because he's going to steamroll you, and he's pretty quick. So
I've had some fun with some Q&As from guys covering Notre Dame this week, and they're asking me like what's a weakness in his game, or what can Notre Dame do to limit him. And one of those questions on what they can do to limit him, I was just basically said they can not underestimate how strong he is and how quick he is. Because I think in 17 games of watching him start for Duke, my one takeaway is just I know he's fast, I know he's strong, but you watch people take poor angles, you watch people try to arm tackle him, and that's where you start to buy into the fact that he is overlooked, he is underrated, he is disrespected. It's not really disrespected by media anymore. Like, we know he's good. His name's out there. Like, he's got enough that sleeper draft buzz that I don't think anybody nationally is calling him underrated. But it's when you get out there and see other players and how they treat him. And do I think Notre Dame is gonna treat him with the utmost respect and try to tackle him? Like, yeah, I think Notre Dame will be well prepared for it. It's just you would also say that about other teams they've played too. Like, did Clemson take him lightly? I would think not. Like, Dabo, for all of Dabo's faults, like, that's one thing. Clemson usually comes out and tackles pretty well. So it's something that, yeah, it's kind of weird watching how he's defended by other teams, and the mistakes that they make in defending him kind of accentuate what he does really well, especially as a runner.
One thing I will say about Dabo is that he runs his team with an SEC stick 'em mentality. So, you're going to tackle somebody, you stick them, and you stick them hard. You make them realize that you've been there and you're coming knocking again. Well,
you say Notre Dame is going to be well prepared. That's assuming they have all 11 guys on the field. But that's
I've also made a fair amount of jokes about there's got to be at least a couple GAs or analysts that are that weren't in charge of counting how many defensive players are on the field last week, who are now in charge of that.
Wow.
Yeah. But before we do get into the matchup, I want to talk about the running backs to this point. I think the thing that fascinates, because even though Duke is not running a ton of plays, just because especially with these last few games they've been ahead, they don't need to really run tempo, is that these backs are going to be generally really fresh because they're only getting 10, 11 carries a game.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it was a 3-headed monster coming into the season, and they've only needed 2 heads so far. Jalen Coleman was their starting running back a year ago. You would have said he was number 1 in the pecking order, and he had a upper body injury late in fall camp that kept him out of the first 3 games. He got in there, I think maybe took 1 or 2 carries in a 2-minute drive at the end of the first half against UConn, but that's been it. So you've kind of got him in reserve. You're not gonna all of a sudden take carries away from Jordan Waters and Jaquez Moore because they've been running so well. So what you've really got is you've got kind of an ace in the hole. The history of that position, and it happened last year with Duke. They're going to need a third running back. Like it's just going to happen. Like Jordan Waters or Jaquez, you want them to be healthy all season. You don't want to think about them getting hurt, but chances are they're probably going to be nicked up at some point, or they're going to need a week to kind of catch their breath after running, whatever. So that's when you'll need Jalen Coleman. And if Jalen Coleman steps up and gives you, 100 yards on 12 carries, then maybe he becomes the number 2 guy, and whoever's coming off the injury can kind of ease back in the way he eased into the season. So yeah, your point is right there. It's a fresh room. They've got Peyton Jones as a freshman running back that, they're going to play. They're not worried about the 4-game redshirt rule with him, but you can only really play especially with the new clock rules, you can really only play 2 running backs in a game and keep them in rhythm and keep them fresh and going. And so it's just been Waters and Moore when they've needed to.
So this team is currently, in terms of yards per game, 4th against the pass, only allowing 143 yards a game. Is this a more of a just a way game flow situation, or is this secondary that good?
No, I mean, game flow, they've been up big on all these teams. So you would figure those teams are trying to throw the ball to get back into the game. So I'd argue that it makes it more impressive that they haven't given up that many passing yards. One of the things that was said last year toward the end of the year, Duke gave up a lot of big plays through the air, and Elko was not happy with the way they defended the ball in the air. And part of that was scheme and technique and trying to teach players who had been taught a certain way for their entire careers how to play a completely different way. I don't know the exact techniques behind that. Like I'm not football savvy enough to understand where Mike is coming from, how different the technique is that he coaches compared to anywhere else. But I just know it was that much different. So they had to, in year 2, it's going to be smoother than year 1. That's played out. They also had to change the personnel a little bit. And that's where you see a guy like Miles Jones come in from Texas A&M. You see a guy like Al Blades Jr. come in from Miami. Miles Jones is 6'4", 195. He's the biggest corner I've ever seen at the college level. He's massive. He's just so long and athletic. And it was the second drive of the game against Clemson that Cade Klubnik threw deep over the middle and had a guy. And Miles Jones just goes full Inspector Gadget, was the guy that had the extendo arms, right? Like Miles Jones just basically reaches over the guy and extends his arm and swats it, and it's an incompletion. And it's kind of yeah, I mean, the guys that Duke had playing corner last year are good, but they're all around 6 foot or under 6 foot, and they don't have those long Inspector Gadget arms to knock that ball away. And so it's probably a touchdown. And that's the difference, right? It's incompletion versus touchdown, or at least 30 or 40 yard gain. That's pretty huge. And so bringing those 2 guys in, playing them at corner, that's really allowed the secondary to kind of elevate to a place that they kind of couldn't get to last year.
I appreciate you giving us a little bit of insight into your earlier television viewing habits.
There's a really bad Inspector Gadget movie too, but
yes,
I just remember the guy with the hat.
Yeah. If you've seen the movie, that one does not go away from you. It's that bad. So anyway, hey, one of the things that I noticed when you were talking about how Inspector Gadget Arms is out there doing his thing with special teams, blocking that field goal against Clemson. You don't see that happen very often against Clemson. Okay. And in fact, it's kind of a rarity in college football that your special teams are that effective or are are making things happen. They should be at that point where they're delivering that and maybe even coming up with a touchdown here and there. We used to see more of that, but give us a little insight on the special teams and what's making them a special teams.
It's kind of it almost relates back to Will's question about the running back depth. When you have depth in your program, it shows up on special teams more than anywhere else. Everybody wants to talk about depth as far as, okay, if this guy goes down, then we have a capable replacement that would step up. That may or may not happen. Where your depth shows is where your second or third string running back runs down on a kickoff coverage and makes a tackle at the 18-yard line instead of the guy breaking free to the 28 or the 30. It's guys, the two blocked kicks against Clemson. One of them was actually blocked. The other one was kicked off the guy's shoulder pad, which is, I think, why Dabo had a guy who was taking online classes as his kicker last week, if you want to get into that. But that was a backup defensive end, Wesley Williams. And he plays starters reps, like he's in the rotation, but he's not on the depth chart as a starter. You've got contributions like that. I think Duke is coming off a game at UConn where they averaged 18 punt return yards per return. And we had Elko joking on Monday that he was telling Jalen Calhoun, the punt returner, that he could have averaged 12 with how good the blocking was in front of him and how well the returns were set up. So it's special teams is very much an emphasis. I know every coach in the country will tell you special teams is an emphasis because the alternative is admitting that it's not. And so you look foolish and your average starting field position is the 18 and you're giving up your opponent's starting field positions like the 38, that kind of thing. That'll lose you games, that'll lose you seasons. But it's where this program is from a depth perspective in year 2 under a coach who inherited a program that won 5 games in the previous 2 years. That's kind of the unspoken part of how impressive of a job this is and where this program has gotten to so quickly, is being able to play some freshmen and some second-year guys in key roles on special teams. The other one that stands out, Joshua Pickett is one of those corners that I was talking about who's on the smaller side. He was a starter last year. Like, he played a ton of reps. He's not a starter this year. He lost his job. Miles Jones, Al Blades, and Chandler Rivers all play more corner snaps than Joshua Pickett. And instead of pouting, instead of hitting the portal after 4 games to keep his eligibility and go, Elko told us on Monday he starts on every all 4 return units, like punt return, kickoff return. Like, he's invested into the program and giving them valuable reps somewhere that he can contribute and play a factor. And that goes into the culture that's been established, the kind of chemistry and team vibes that they've had that all started to build last year, and it's only strengthened to now.
Let me go back really quickly based upon what you just told us. Mike has only been there for a short period of time, but yet he has made a substantial change in the dynamics and the culture in so many things about Duke football. What is the one thing that you can point to that has been the most dramatic change that he's implemented to make all of this happen?
Are you looking for a specific hard set thing, or
anything
anything
gut reactive? I mean, because we could go through a long list of things and break it down, but you're in your gut.
The existential thing is just he's shown the players confidence. Like, he's instilled confidence in them. That's why they play so confidently. It goes beyond, like, Mike doesn't instill confidence in them without them instilling confidence in themselves, and that a lot of that happens over the summer where they have the strength and conditioning program that they have. I think I talked to you guys about that over the summer with David Feely. I think he's a top 10 strength coach in the country, just based on, 2 seasons of watching this, or a season and 4 games of watching this. But it's like I highlighted it when I rewatched the Clemson game earlier this week. There's I think it was a 4th and 7 right at the end of the first half, and it's 40, 50 seconds left. They're on Clemson's 38-yard line, so it's right in no man's territory of, do you punt it from their 38 and just go to halftime down 7-6? Do you try to press the issue a little bit? And he goes for it. And before you even get to the Riley Leonard completion to Jalen Calhoun to convert it, you're telling your players right there, you trust them, you trust your offense not to turn it over and give Clemson a short field to steal some points at the end of half. You trust your kicker to go make a field goal at the end of the first half and give you a boost and give you a lead going into halftime against the team that's had a stranglehold on the conference for 8 years. So it's showing your players, hey, I think you can do this. This is the position I'm going to put you in. They still have to do it. They still have to make the play. But I think players play a lot more confident when they see coaches believe in them like that. And it sounds corny, it probably sounds homerish, and I hate that part of it, but it's just kind of the way that it's the vibe that you pick up.
I don't think it sounds that way at all, Connor, to be honest with you. I mean, I think there's a lot to what you just said. Believing in somebody and confidence. All of us go through life. If we have somebody who believes in us and supports us and has confidence in what we're doing and gives us the tools to do it, we're more likely to succeed. And I think you just hit it right on the head. Will?
All right, so let's start getting into the matchup a little bit. I saw this today. This was the first time Duke is hosting a top 20 matchup in 60 something years, which just tells you just where the futility of this program, but where they are now. But the thing is, College Game Day is going to be there for the first time. Will you be there holding a Rudy was offside sign?
No, if I didn't go to the basketball version of Game Day when it was K's last home game, I'm not going to this one. Doing a 14-hour day in Durham is not my cup of tea. As much as I like the city, that's not where I'll be on Saturday.
I mean, let's be real. It'll probably be a Colorado infomercial still, but that's. But seriously though, I think what fascinates me most about this matchup is both these teams run the ball really well. They both stop the run really well. Audrey Estime leads the country in rushing, but he's also played an extra game because they played week 0. But we talked about the 3-headed attack with Duke between the 2 backs plus Leonard. Really, is it simple to say that this game is going to be won in the trenches?
Yeah, I certainly think so. I had this conversation earlier with somebody. I kind of think these teams are just going to line up and beat each other's heads in for the first at least couple drives each. I don't think that if both first possessions of the game go quickly and there's not much ground gained, I don't think they're going to come out on the second possessions and throw the ball all over the place. Is what I'm trying to get at. I think they're both dedicated to the run enough that they're going to exhaust a lot of resources figuring out where they can have success on the ground before they turn it over to the quarterbacks. Now, that said, I could look like an idiot and both of these teams could come out and throw the ball because both of them, like we just talked about with trust, both of these teams have a lot of trust in their quarterbacks. How can you not trust a guy making, I think it'll be Sam's 52nd career start? And then Riley has all the trust in the world from his coaches and in his coaches. So it's a really intriguing matchup when you start looking at how similar they are with what they do well. And kind of, I don't even know that either one of them does anything that poorly. We kind of haven't seen them do anything all that poorly. It's 2 pretty balanced and pretty high level teams.
Yeah, and these two faced off against each other last year in a pretty exciting ball game. I think Duke won by 3, but I think both quarterbacks went over 300 yards in that game.
Oh, the
I don't know.
quarterbacks were strong. I was confused.
Yeah, I was talking about the quarterbacks,
Yeah.
Hartman and Leonard. Yeah, Hartman at Wake Forest. But funny thing is I feel like I don't think Hartman's throwing for 350 because he doesn't have the receivers at Notre Dame that he did at Wake Forest.
Yeah, so I was half right in my July predictions because I thought Sam would not be as good at Notre Dame because his receivers would not be as good as they were at Wake, and I thought Brennan Armstrong would not be as good with State because he didn't have the same caliber receiver as he did at UVA. And I think I was right about Brennan. I think I was kind of wrong about Sam. Like I think he's got weapons. I think he's got some balanced weapons. Like I think Jaden Thomas is their leading receiver, but there's maybe 3 or 4 guys over 125 or 150 receiving yards for them, and nobody over 200. They spread the ball around. They've got a lot of talent. I do think though that, and I asked this question of Elko on Monday. There's no benefit to Duke seeing Sam Hartman last year because it's just such a different offense. It's completely different. Whatever you want to call Wake's offense now, I've already called it the spread option, RPO heavy. They have a problem with slow mesh, and they want to call it the hang and bang and the pace and space and whatever other moniker you can attach to it that doesn't tell teams that they don't produce NFL caliber talent. But look, it's a different offense going to Notre Dame. It's more pro style. It's I said this watching the Navy game there in week 0, like how great it is for Sam that he's able to turn and make a handoff and not get wrapped up by some 270-pound defensive end coming unblocked off the edge. He just turns around and watches the hole open up, and his running back goes 8 yards before getting touched. So that's got to be a pretty good feeling for him. And yeah, it's just there's no real benefit to Duke having seen him earlier this year, or Duke having seen him last year.
Yeah. Oh, you were saying hang and bang, and I'm sitting here trying not to laugh.
I swear that's what one of these TV guys has called it. I don't know where they got that from. Whether that was in one of the pre-production meetings with Wake staff or whether they just came up with that on a whim, but I swear that's what one of them called it.
But no, seriously though, another factor in this game too. Neither one of these quarterbacks has thrown a pick, so it's really both these teams take care of the ball very well, and again, that's going to be another key to this game. Is it really is that simple? Winning in the trenches, not turning the ball over.
Yeah, and it's so cliched and it's so much everybody knows that about football. So why are you saying it if everybody knows it? But you say it because it's true. Like it is 100% the game of football is win the line of scrimmage, don't turn the ball over to the other team. Give yourself a chance to go down and either kick a field goal or run into the end zone. It's for as much as we talk about the ins and outs and the X's and O's and the inside baseball aspects of this game, like it really is pretty simple sometimes. It's just move the guy in front of you and tackle the guy with the ball. And that's football.
It's simple. Yeah. You no matter how good your quarterback is, if you can't protect them, you're not going to have success. See Pittsburgh.
I thought you were switching gears to me on Wake Forest.
Oh yeah, that too. We could have gotten there. We could have gone there too, but it was just the first thing that came to my head when I was looking at how bad Pitt's been this year. But no, it's seriously, it's very cliche. But then we see a lot of offenses now just go to these spread offenses and the quick passing games and whatnot. But that's not really either of these teams' motives.
No, it's not. And again, to keep going back to what Mike Elko said on Monday afternoon, I think he had a pretty good quote. I need to go back and re-listen to it and probably write a story about it this week. Basically talking about, you look at the teams that win championships in college football. They're all able to run the ball. They all play really physical on offense and defense. They control the line of scrimmage. And they take care of the football. Like he this is where we get into defensive coordinator Mike Elko and not so much head coach Mike Elko. And he goes, the spread option, the teams that put up 50 points a game, like they get all the headlines, but they're not winning championships. They win a lot of games, but they're not the ones that end up with the trophy at the end of the season. So it's kind of a question of, do you want to play entertaining football and maybe put a cap on yourself of what can be accomplished, or do you want to win a championship? And it's never that simple. Like, Georgia didn't win the championship because they did those things. They won the championship the last 2 years because they did those things with a boatload of talented players, right? You have to have the talent to supplement it, but once you get the talent, you can play that way and win championships.
Yep. That explains a lot about Clemson over the past few years. They've just had so much depth and so much talent. And that's why, as you mentioned, that they've dominated the ACC for so long. And, they're having problems now, but, how long will that stay? We'll see. But it looks to me, again, and I've been saying this for years, that the ACC, a lot of the teams in the ACC are beginning to rise. There's becoming more parity, and I expect that to continue. And when people are surprised by the arrival of Duke and how Duke is playing football, it's because they haven't been paying attention. It's just that simple. So in this game, here's what I would suggest if I have a voice and somebody at Duke is listening. What I saw that I thought immediately was a plus for Duke running an offense against Notre Dame is play hurry up offense. If you keep a hurry up offense against them the entire game, you're going to come out with a win. I'm just
they've gone tempo a few times. It's not been a staple, and it's certainly not like we haven't seen it in the second halves of any of these games because they've gotten up by 2 and 3 touchdowns eventually in all of them. Mm-hmm. But I want to say it was the second drive against Clemson that Duke really dialed it up, and I had to kind of look at my play-by-play and look at where they were, and it was like, oh, whoa, they're going, hyperspeed right now is what I'd always say when Wake would turn it up to dial up the 11 tempo. But yeah, they've got it. I think it's there. We've seen it a couple times, so we know it's there. Be interesting to watch.
I think they didn't they have that? Didn't they do that for like at least 3 or 4 plays against Northwestern? I think that's where I
sounds
saw
about right.
And it absolutely put Northwestern back on their heels. They were
again, like, Elko's funny, man. He's a defensive coordinator. Like, that's always who he's going to be. But sometimes you get those defensive coordinators that they want their offense to do the things that they hated because they want the other defensive coordinator to now feel that. And so you'll see some of it. Yeah, you'll see some of it. And I think every defensive coordinator hates tempo, right? So that's a lot of that influence, I think.
All right, Conor, forget about everything that you've said over the last couple of months. In fact, we'll go hide your preview comments regarding this game. I'll just go in and quickly edit it and make it disappear. The way this season has gone so far, what are your thoughts? What's the outcome? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah,
but I think always do this.
I think it's going to be low scoring. I think I don't know, something in the realm of 20-16 or 17-13, field goals type of game. Like, take the points when you can get the points. Just because I had one preseason prediction where I said Duke would be 4-1 through the end of September. maybe I've put a loss on them inadvertently. I did think they had a better chance to beat Clemson than Notre Dame, and I'll stick with that. I don't like doing it. I don't like picking games, but if you're making me,
you don't have to say who's going to win.
Okay,
you just gave us the score, so we'll see how that comes out. Okay,
low scoring, 2016 or 17-13. That's it.
Sounds pretty good. All right. Any more questions, Will? While we've got
I think we've covered everything. I don't think we need to use replay here.
All right. Okay.
Which wasn't there? It was Duke's game at UConn. They replayed a replay. They reviewed a review.
Yeah.
Tell me how
that one was especially for you.
Yeah, that's great. Although, as I pointed out to everybody on Twitter, now lets me know when these crazy situations happen. That's a normal day at the office for Jerry Magalanes. Like, that guy's a train wreck of a ref. I cannot believe he's able to do Duke games because he was the ref that allowed the Miami lateral touchdown to stand 7 years ago.
Yeah. Oh God.
I don't know how the conference justifies putting him on a Duke game ever, but yeah, he was doing the game up in Stores, and I try to tell people, like, yes, I appreciate you giving me the bat signal on this one, but this guy, it's more of a ref problem, like a review problem here.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. I won't get into bashing refs too much here. I try very hard not to do that.
Look, that's the one. That's the one the ACC employs. Every other one, give them a break. But
I hear you. Oh, maybe somebody else is listening too. Hey, great look at what's coming up with Duke and Notre Dame, and this is going to be a fabulous game. I hope there's a great turnout for this game, and I know there's going to be a lot of people watching. It's just one of those things. The publisher of Devils Illustrated and also Deacons Illustrated, Conor O'Neill, has been our special guest to give us a little taste and maybe a little trash talking of not only refs, but also the Irish and some other people along the way. Always a pleasure, Conor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
Jim, Will. Thanks, guys.